Hello, folks. How are you all doing? Let's bring that very lovely background music all the way down. Marvelous. Hello, folks. Welcome. We are going to be doing some very fun things for approximately the next 45 minutes. It is going to be a real great time, and I am excited to show you all the insides of NFC and RFID, what's in your pocket. That is a real fun one. So the answer to what's in your pocket is usually many different things. And a lot of those things tend to be cards. Usually the kinds of cards like this that you would use to either pay by tapping on something, or to get you into a door, or to get you onto the subway. Whole bunch of different options. And the fun thing about those cards is that everybody sort of taps them on a daily basis, but in most cases, you really don't know what's inside them. Quite specific. I will make it very clear that I am not intending to provide you with any information data for them. Hold on. There we go. All right, folks, we have returned, hopefully with significantly improved quality on account of me actually managing to plug the Ethernet cable in this time, which is always lovely. So let's jump back a second. We are going to be talking for approximately the next period about NFC cards and RFID and all those fun, magical wireless things that you have in your pocket where you tap them and they get you into doors, they get you into your train, they get you into all of these fun places, and most of the time we really have no idea what's going on inside them. So I'm going to talk for a little bit about a couple of devices which you can use to actually look under the hood of these things. I'm going to talk about a couple of devices that I've used in the past for this, and I'm going to show you some of the data that actually sits in the cards that you have with you on a daily basis, which is all fun. I will note here, to be very clear, I am not going to be showing you any ways to clone cards. I'm not going to be showing you any ways to bypass the security protections of those cards. I am not going to be explaining to you how to get into your friend's house without asking them. This is a very, very clear thing. Do not do anything that you do not have the explicit permission and legal authorization to do when you are dealing with these kinds of things. That is not a joke. I am not responsible if you end up getting very in a lot of hot water with your local police department when you misuse this kind of stuff. With that said, let's get into the fun. So I have a little bit of a, well, many different things to show you off today. We're going to talk our way through magstripe cards like this. We're going to show you some stuff that you might order, like Metro cards, getting you into transit. We're going to talk about both NFC and RFID cards like this one. We're also going to take a quick foray into what NFC actually is and how to identify it on readers on doors, whether it's NFC or RFID. And finally, we're going to take a look at some hotel key cards, and we're going to see what magic these have with them. And we're going to do that with a variety of different devices. So the device that I've got here, this lets us look at mag stripes. So if we, in fact, let's start with that as a starting point. This is always a good one. So if I plug this in and we get this going, just a quick heads up in chat. How many of you folks have previously looked at what is in a mag stripe? Like what is actually on the stripe on your card? So this will be, in a lot of cases, this can be for opening doors. For a lot of the American folks, this will be the main way that you would. This would be the main way that you, in a lot of cases, that you would pay. That's starting to move now towards chip and pin, which is in whole other discussion. But there's definitely a corner there where that's still fairly common. I'll just wait a second for you folks to start streaming in. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, lovely. Cool. Yes, they are fair ones. I'm not getting in the middle of this. So let's take a quick look here. I'm going to quickly grab myself a very lovely piece of kit over here. There we go. So we have this kicking over, and what you can see here is that it is now flashing, which is lovely. And my favorite part about this one specifically is that it's actually Bluetooth enabled, which is freaking great because it means that I get to show you the if this plays ball, it means that I get to show you the fun ability to just sort of like read this stuff off of your phone. So if I pull the software up over here, yep, there we go. That's all good. In fact, hold on, we're gonna take a step back here. Because mag stripes are not necessarily playing ball, but the cards most certainly are. And in order to take a look at our cards, we're going to need something similar to this. This is called a Proxmark. This is one that I've had for many, many years now and sort of tinkered around with and thrown around in bags. It basically goes everywhere with me. And what these let you do is these let you read RFID and NFC cards. So what we're going to do is we are going to plug this in. And I'm going to drop myself into a terminal. And we're going to drop that terminal on screen. Window, terminal. Magical. Okay. And what we're going to do now is we are going to drop ourselves. Ooh, interesting. I did not realize that I didn't have Proxmark 3 on here, which is fun. So we're going to very briefly install Proxmark, which is going to be slightly fun. So while we deal with that, everything's going to fun places today. Let's jump right back again and briefly, as I said, touch on the magstripe side of things. So magstripes generally tend to contain. Sorry, I've just looked over here, and for some reason, this has decided that it is not going to recognize GitHub, which is great. Okay, that's fixed. GitHub, that's a fun error. Okay, anyway, we will deal with that momentarily. Okay, I'm going to just quickly take a break for 1 second to figure out this technical difficulty, and we will be right back with you. Right, folks. We are back after a short break to fix a couple of technical difficulties. We are now going to jump over, as I mentioned a little earlier, to taking a look at our lovely mag stripes, which are always fun. So as you can see here, I have a little bit of kit set up, which is going to let us take a look inside of the stripes on one of these cards. And what I have here is a slightly fun one. This is a black Starbucks card, specifically from the Starbucks Reserve Roastery in Japan. So do not attempt to try and use this. It is absolutely useless unless you wish to go to Japan and use it, in which case, be my guest. It's got like $4 on it. So if we're going to swipe this through, actually, no, we need to click read and then swipe this through. There we go. So you can see now that the read was correct. We can also see here that we have some very fun data in here. And if we actually look at the back of the card, you will see that some of this data matches up with the card number on the back, and also, actually no, not the PIN code, but definitely the card number, which is nice. So there's definitely some element in there which plays ball, which is lovely. So if we actually, there's actually two different card types here, and this is based off of the thickness of the strip. So I'm going to try and show you this as best I can on camera. So you'll see here that the this particular Starbucks card, the strip on it is quite thin. That little top strip, you see that? It's like, it's not particularly thick. Whereas if I put an MTA Metro card next to it, I need to try and get these at the same level so they're both focused. There we go. So you can see that like the thickness of that MTA strip is almost double. So the reason for that is in order to encode an extra stripe, as they call them, of data onto the HICO ones, or track, which is actually the corrector. So if we have a loco card, which is if we select correctly for the Starbucks card here, and we swipe that in, you'll see that it only has one track's worth of data on it. But if I select HICO, I set this to read, and I swipe this Metro card through, you will see that it fails completely because I managed to not do it fast enough. And also, I think because this is actually a broken Metro card, which is even better. So one more shot. Nope, read error. So we will give it one last shot on loco. Otherwise, I think the reason that I got this was actually because it was very broken. So yep, no data for us from the Metro card, which is unfortunate, but we will work with it. You can go over there into the bin. So let's move our way on, and we're going to take a look, as I mentioned a little earlier, at the lovely Proxmark. But there's a device that a whole bunch of you folks have probably seen. The whole bunch of you folks have probably seen recently going around the internet, and that is one of these lovely things. If you haven't seen one of these before, this is a flipper. This is a lovely little bit of kit. What this allows you to do is to, well, among other things, you can look at the data inside iButtons with the little stuff on the back. You have an IR blaster built in, so you can control televisions. You have GPIO pins on the top of it, so you can focus. There we go. So that you can connect any external peripherals that you want to. And it also has an NFC, an RFID reader, and sub-gigahertz capability built into it. So if I show you this here, if we head our way through this and take a look at sub-gigahertz, for example, you can not only read signals that are being sent to it, but you can also, if you head into the frequency analyzer, let's say that we go for, hold on, it appears to have locked itself out, which is great. So attempt to get that running. Not okay, no, there we go. There we go, perfect. So you can see here, we have a little picture of the spectrum. And if I start to shuffle my way up into the higher spectrums, you should start to see some spikes around 2,400, which I'm going to get to in a moment, or possibly lower actually, because I don't know if it goes up that high. But what you will start to see is little spikes here and there in the patterns. And this is actually the radio background noise in the room that I'm in right now. So this is actively has a little radio in it, and it is reading the background noise of the room that I'm in at the moment, which is great. And what this lets you do, among other things, is you can start to pick out where things are in a room. So for example, if you have a tiny little camera in a room, and that tiny little camera is broadcasting to somewhere else, as spies tend to do, you can actually use this to move around the room as you would see in movies, and you would wait for the tiny little camera to appear, and then you would, so once you got that little spike, you could slowly use this to triangulate in on the said camera, and then figure out precisely where it is, which is great. So that's always fun. So if we take a look through the other settings that we have in here, we also have two very fun ones, which is 125 kilohertz RFID, which is what we're going to talk about in a second, and also NFC, and also infrared, but infrared could be its own thing on its own. So if we talk about 125 kilohertz RFID here, this is a really fun one. So if we jump in here and I do read, and I find the right spot on here to, where does it read from? Come on, remind me again. Like, give me LF RFID. Wherefore art thou RFID? Oh, there we go. That's it. Was it? Where was it? There was it. Right in the back. Dead in the back. So, oh, it blinks. Lovely. So what you can see here is I have a little card, and what the flipper is currently doing is it's trying to read RFID, which is one of two possible frequencies. Well, one of the two of the most common frequencies, I should note. So we have RFID and we have NFC. What you can see here is that the little light is blinking there for LF 125 kilohertz. And what that means is that that is low frequency RFID, and this card is a tiny little PCB. And what it does is that whenever it receives any data on that frequency, it lights the little LED. So if I stop reading RFID, I instead go over to NFC, and I try and read the NFC side of the card, you'll see that the HF light now starts blinking, because we are blinking, well, not blinking, but we are trying to read high frequency NFC data. So what this also lets you do, with this card specifically, the reason that I have it is that if you ever go up to a door and you don't have the card for that door and you want to figure out whether it's RFID or NFC, you can hold this up to it and it will blink the light depending on which one it is, which I just think is really neat. Really helpful if you're trying to figure that out. So we've talked about the flipper. The flipper lets you do all of the stuff that I'm about to do with the Proxmark, but in a much smaller body. It also lets you do infrared, which is really fun because, for example, you can program TV remotes into it, and then you can use it as a TV remote, which is great when you're in, well, would not recommend this, but if you happen to be at your grandparents' house and the TV is on slightly too loud, you can turn it down without them even realizing, which is just great. It also has a U2F mode, which is great for using it as a security key, and bad USB, which is an entire topic on its own. So we'll drop the flipper over there and put it back to sleep. Love that. And we're going to jump over to the Proxmark. Proxmarks are very fun things. So let's quickly throw this up. And we're going to talk a little bit about what we've got here. So the Proxmark that I have connected right now, this is a tiny little piece of kit. It has a whole bunch of fun in it. It has, among other things, an FPGA, a couple of extra bits, an ARM processor, and in my case, I've added Bluetooth and a few other bits so that I can use it wirelessly. So what we're going to do here is we are going to use a couple of commands in order to show you precisely what are on these cards. So there is HF search, there is LF search. Now remember a little earlier when I was talking about this, you have LF, which is RFID, low frequency, and high frequency, which is NFC usually. So you can see here, I've just run a high frequency search and it said, nope, nothing there. Can't seem to find anything. So let's see what happens if I put a card on top of it. Let's see what it finds. Ooh, exciting. So we can see here that it has in fact found a tag. And not only has it found it, it has spat out all of, well, a good chunk of the information about it. And also a chunk of the information about what it could be. So I actually know what type of card this is, which makes this really fun. So what it's saying here is it's looking for an ISO 14443-A tag. And if we actually go and look at what that means, that is the ISO standard for contactless cards, specifically integrated circuit contactless cards. So that is a specific ISO standard that a whole bunch of different cards implement. And then there's also another standard on top of that, which then starts to go into detail about what it can do. And it's pretty sure at this point, because it's poked it with a few different commands, that it thinks this is a MyFair Classic 1K card. And so MyFair is a pretty well-known standard at this point of mainstream contactless smart cards. They're manufactured, I think, by NXP. And the family, the Classic 1K family, are a specific family of them that are used in it has about 1024 bits of storage. It's kind of secure. Wouldn't use it if you really needed proper security. That's why most of your transit systems are going to be using DesFire, which is much more heavily encrypted, and therefore you can't just magically take your Oyster card or your Omni and drop it onto this and write yourself a new amount of credit through the subway. That's just not how these things work. So what we do have in here though is our UID. So there's a unique identifier for each individual card we get. And we have a bit of other information as well. It's saying, okay, this is not this meets some of this standard, but it's proprietary, really doesn't meet all of it, and also doesn't support this thing called RATs, which we'll get into at some other point. The last thing that we need right now are RATs. It didn't answer to CL1 select all, which means that we don't know all of the regions on it. And it doesn't appear to have random number generation detection, which means basically that means it's good. It means that there's a number of things that we might be able to do with a card that doesn't have as good security on it that we couldn't do with this one. So what I'm going to try to do here now is do an HFMF dump, which it can't do because it doesn't have a key, which is great. So let's maybe try C view. Yeah, magic size block. Exciting. Let's maybe try it on LF, because I know that this is a magic card that actually has two different types of. Oh, there we go. Perfect. This has two different types of IDs in. So in this case, you can see here that this has a very specific HID prox ID attached to it, which is great. And this, low frequency generally, because of high frequency lets you send a lot more data back and forth at the same speed. So what ends up happening is that it is very easy to implement fairly complicated protocols on top of it. Whereas with low frequency, it's just what's the data? Here's the data, and it's done. So for low frequency, usually all it's doing is it's just giving you the ID for the card, which means that they are fairly easy to copy. So you really shouldn't rely on low frequency for any sort of security for the most part. You can see here that we've checked the LF and we've gone, what's in it? And it's gone, this is in it. It's found that it's specifically an HID prox ID card in terms of the standard. And you can also see here that once it's demodulated, this is the ID that it has inside it. It also thinks that it's a T55 chipset inside, which is again, whole other conversation. That's one standard type of RFID chipset. So we're going to put this card aside. And we're going to move ourselves right on over to another one. So let's go. If we drop ourselves on here, we're going to take a look quickly at a even more fun card. We have search. There we go. Exciting. It's trying to figure out what's inside. This is a fun one. So this is actually a hotel key card that I took about 2 years ago by accident in a bag, and then have sort of just kept around for demos just like this. So we can see again, this has a UID, has a couple of other bits. It's a MyFair Classic 1K. And in fact, just to give you an example of like, if we try and dump it, it's not going to play ball. If we run this command, it's also probably not going to play ball because this, as I recall, was actually a surprisingly decent. Yep, there we go. So taking a look at this one, it's like, okay, even in the best case scenario, and it is failing all over the place, this is still going to take 26 hours. And that's in the best case scenario, that it's actually going to be able to like figure out how to get into this card. So pretty unlikely that you're going to be able to bust into that one. But we can, with the power of magic, we can take a look at what the inside of one of these cards might look like. Because through the fun of the internet, I have managed to find some dumps of these cards. So if we go ahead and take a look over here, then we should have ourselves a very magical. How has this gone? It always disappears just when I want it. Look for. Is that it? No, that's session commits for an entirely different thing. Where are my file dumps? Hey. Hold on, we are going to need to go into my file share, I think, because it appears that those have ended up there. But yeah, so that's a sort of top level. We'll get into the specific details of what's inside these cards in a bit. Chat, if you have any questions, by the way, I forgot to mention this. Any questions at all that you want answered on the concept of RFID, please do drop them in, and I will be more than happy to answer them for you. Okay, we're going to take a look in laptop backup. Love this. Okay. And where is my folder for these? It is somewhere. It's not there. Interesting. Okay. Great. FB socials. Exciting. So it looks like. Actually, no, there we go. Found it. There we go. Nope, didn't find it. Completely different instance. That's great. Cool. Well, that's good to know at least. So we'll take a look at those momentarily. All right. So one final thing we can look at, actually, which is slightly fun. If we take a look at this card, I think the right one. 85th MF. See what the. There we go. That's this one. So I had managed, fortunately, to. I thought I'd remember to do that, which is very fortunate. I managed to rewrite the. Managed to rewrite this just before the stream to drop the keys off of it. So if we head on over here and we take a look at the JSON, which I would like to open in Sublime. Thank you very much. Marvelous, marvelous. Then we will bring that up over here. Here we are. Okay, and if we briefly reopen Sublime, which has just updated, so it has magically disappeared off of my screen. There we go. Great. So you can see here the output of what Proxmark gives us once we dump the card is a bunch of different things. We have the marvelous, just built by Proxmark thing at the top. And then we know it's a MF card, so we know that much. We know the UID, we know these two values, which you don't really need to worry about too much. Then we have all of these blocks, and we also have sector keys, and sector keys are really fun. So what we're going to get into with this specifically is if you start to look into here, you'll actually see that there's patterns where you can see like this, like FFF and then 07869, that's always repeating across all of these. You can see there's a whole bunch of 0000s in like 4 blocks and then a chunk. There's this pattern which just sort of ends it. And then there is right at the top of here, this fun little bit. And you'll see here as well, this bit here, A61B33A, that is actually the ID that we read from the top. So you can see here that this little section here, that is in fact the UID, the ATQA 0400, that is over here. And then our SAC is just here at 08. So already we're able to start picking out chunks of the data that it's managed to parse. But all the rest of this data here is like entirely arbitrary. You can put whatever you want in these cards, and then you can read them out. And part of the fun of this as well is that you have sector keys. So you can see here it's like write AB, read AB, write AB, increment, decrement, transfer, restore, like all of this stuff. What this is doing is the access conditions block here. So you can set these keys differently. So you can give different applications different keys. And what this means is that different devices are capable of reading or writing to different parts of these blocks. And what that means in practice is that, for example, when you go and like tap your card to refill it at a train station, for example, what's happening there is that your the ticket machine has a write key in it, and it is using that write key to then write to your card. But then all of the barriers that you tap in at, those all only have read keys. So they can only read the data from your card. And by way of that, what that effectively means is that they do not have the ability to sort of read their way through your stuff effectively. So you can't necessarily like go and like steal a ticket like barrier and then be like, oh yeah, I can suddenly like rewrite all of your cards. That's not how that works, which is great. And the other thing as well with this is that these access conditions, what it's actually doing here is this hex here is what is on the card as the access condition. So that's locked in to the card. And then what it's doing is it's taking this data, it's parsing it out, and it's saying, these are the rules that this text actually means. And by proxy of that, what it can and can't do with it. And I think that brings us pretty nicely all the way to the end of our little deep dive into NFC and RFID. I hope you folks had a whole bunch of fun. I know I certainly did. If you would like any further information on NFC, RFID, magstripes, all the rest of it, there are a whole bunch of really good resources online. Highly recommend taking a look at the magstripe side of things. That's how I got into this stuff, and I always still find it really fun. And with that, I will leave you folks off to your next session. Have a marvelous, marvelous rest of your global hack week.